The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Hey, happy Friday.
Jess C. from Dr. Orange Pill,
Europe, right here. We're all Satoshi.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. First, the price of Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is $106,880, down 1.37% in the last 24 hours, with a high of 109, a low of 103, and a volume of 1,735 Bitcoins traded. That's $1 for 936 Satoshis, still below the 1,000 Satoshi barrier. As you know, during our show last week, when we were ignoring the chat and ignoring the internet, Bitcoin did us the pleasure of a giant crash, which we will now talk about this week. To start with, there's been a lot of allegations and so forth. A lot of this is alleged, so we want to keep that here. Allegedly, someone knew about President Donald Trump's announcement of a so-called 100% tariff on China, and they used this information to allegedly front-run the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and many altcoin markets. This front running created allegedly $190 to $200 million of profit in about 2 to 3 hours. The whale created a brand new account on Hyperliquid, Hyperliquid X, an exchange I'd never heard of. There's apparently lots of liquidity there, or there used to be. The whale then proceeded to short Bitcoin, Ethereum, and everything else. Minutes before the Trump tariff announcement, when the announcement came out, the market cratered and they made $200 million in minutes. When this happened, Robinhood, Coinbase did not allow people to buy the bottom. People weren't able to cover their shorts. Their websites crashed, making it so that even if you were a smart investor and you were saying, well, I'm going to buy the bottom of this, that was not available to you at Robinhood or Coinbase. It got even fishier in the days after people started talking about Binance and that they had, again, frozen user accounts. Traders were unable to access their funds at critical moments, according to CryptoCowboy_AU. Limit orders and stop loss functions were conveniently disabled. This move ensured that Binance maximized profits during the largest liquidation event in history. For those of you who don't know, the Binance exchange takes a 1% liquidation fee when you're liquidated. So it's actually in their interests for their customers to lose their trades because of this 1%. Coinbase and Binance, again, had degraded performance with transactions. Coinbase, despite being on the stock market, having more money than anything, still cannot keep their exchange up during crashes, which again robs users of the ability to buy the bottom if they believe that's the bottom. The White Whale, at White Whale HL on Twitter, posted a post-crash pilot debrief from the White Whale. And I just want to give a shout out to a lot of these people who lost a lot of money in this liquidation crisis. I want to shout them out for posting about their losses. So many people post about their wins. They don't post about their losses. It's too painful. The White Whale was liquidated $62 million in a flash. He had a goal of $100 million. He got to 98, which is incredible. But remember these horrible round numbers, not just goals, but prices, so many things. He lost 62 million. Other people were liquidated. They saw that Binance started dumping millions into Bitcoin and Ethereum to liquidate the longs. There are allegations, of course, alleged that Binance behind the scenes made the crash worse by selling their own Bitcoin and Ethereum during the crash, causing their customers allegedly to be liquidated, making billions of dollars for Binance. A person named Machi Big Brother got liquidated multiple times. He went from $43 million in profits to minus $12 million in profits. Kobayashi letter got into this, saying that yesterday's crypto liquidation led to Bitcoin's first ever 20,000 daily swing. Bitcoin alone erased $380 billion in market cap in just 8 hours. That's more than the market cap of all but 25 companies in the world. Take a look at that big red candle. Many were saying this was worse than the 1929 stock market crisis and larger in volume, or at least in money, than any crisis, Bitcoin or otherwise. Kobayashi letter said, according to CoffeeZilla, that a whale placed $23 million of shorts exactly 1 minute before the president announced his 100% tariffs. They're calling it the best crypto trade in the year. $192 million gain on shorts just 30 minutes later, according to this. During the downturn, BlackRock picked up 45,000 Bitcoin while you couldn't buy. This guy, Huang BNB, said it's the worst day of his life financially. $9 million gone instantly. It wasn't a rug or a hack, just one liquidation. No one is untouchable. It could happen to you. Just a good lesson on this liquidation. Now, this is where it gets a little alleged. And again, we don't want to say we have no information on this. This is all from Twitter. Allegedly, a man named Garrett Jin, the hyper-liquid, hyper-unit whale, changed his Telegram privacy settings, hiding his previously public photos and phone number. He removed Xhash from his bio. Some people say that this may be the person behind the $735 million short placed on Bitcoin. And in case you're wondering, he does have potential connections to the White House. Again, speculation, but many were saying it's possible that Baron Trump could be involved. No one knows anything. This is all alleged. They say analysts say the true size of the liquidation could be $400 billion. It could be 20 times larger than what was reported. Garrett Bullish is allegedly connected to the Bit4X.com founder, Garrett Bullish, who, as many have reported, took his life in his Lamborghini following the losses of allegedly, I think, around $65 million in other people's money. So he's connected to that. It's just been a lot happening. Then the shorter is longing, is shorting. There's many new tweets. And again, they're taking a look at Binance with crypto.com calling for regulators and planning to sue Binance for the liquidations flash crash that was caused and contributed to allegedly by Binance's internal oracles and for what they were selling. This caused users to move $22 billion out of Binance, but it's not over yet. Let's see. We're probably not sharing screen. I don't know what you guys are looking at. Maybe none of these graphics. Oh, wait, there's new graphic.
I can see it. I see it. I saw everything.
Okay, good. Zoom changes the controls every week, but we're joined by Dan and Jess C. Let's just talk really generally. Dan, what do you think about the crypto crash? We've never seen one so big. In many ways, it almost recovered. Bitcoin and Ethereum almost at their own levels. Then another round of crashes today, 3 to 5% in Bitcoin in the upper markets, which again recovered slightly, but we just don't know. They've said it's Friday afternoon. They're saying there might be a deal with China or there might be more tariffs. Everything's going in every direction. Dan, what do you think about the Bitcoin crash that was?
Yeah, well, it's absolutely savage. And if you think about the fact that we first reached, roughly 20K in 2017, and 8 years later that it's swinging 20K in one single day. A lot of us were hoping for a green candle, but we hit a red candle. There's a lot of speculation going on, and a lot of weird kind of circumstances, right? You got one of the things that I found quite weird was that Coinbase listed BNB after. So with all this random stuff going on, they've just announced that they've listed BNB, right? That seems quite strange. There's obviously in the limelight, Binance have been, especially around their listing process and their apparent dubious process around listing. But again, there's not much, hard evidence around how Binance is. A lot of speculation at the moment. We mentioned about Hyperliquid, but that actually stayed, pretty resilient during the crash. It was people had their orders that they're able to make them fill them, and obviously there was a lot of liquidations. I think it was 1.23 billion in 24 hours, which is a savage amount, and a lot of people's lives lost, right? Because they didn't just buy Bitcoin and hold, and they're just seeing a drop of 10% or so. They were putting all of their life savings into leveraged trading, which you can make a lot more money from. But one, you don't hold that Bitcoin, and two, these price swings and mini dumps can catch you. There was some of the other crazy ones, like I think Atom and other cryptos that were on certain exchanges dropped to like 1 cent, and they dropped to 90% plus. So some people had their orders, insane orders filled, and a lot of people actually again lost a lot of money. It's just all a bit savage. But BlackRock, the fact that they managed to buy, so all this was going on, and BlackRock just managed to swing in another 45,000 Bitcoin. It's a bit odd that, right? But the big wigs are going to be able to buy the absolute lowest. But I think they bought. I think I read that they bought at about 105K, and that's we're only floating slightly above that right now. Whether we make that recovery or not, well, I don't know. But again, we were at 125. We just hit an all-time high, due for a pullback. There's, could have been the China the tariffs that kicked things off, and made that plunge. But I think we were just due a bit of a drawback, and any small bit of bad news was going to, hit quite hard. There was some other good news out of it recently. Was it yesterday or the day before? Like Charles Schwab are now going to be doing, have a Bitcoin trading desk or something like that. So there's a lot of, I don't know, and there's gold panic, right? There's a gold. People are panic buying gold right now. There's queues of people buying gold. There's people that are melting down watches and things like that to get the gold out of it. So we've got. Really, retail is absolutely clamoring for gold right now, and we haven't kind of seen that with Bitcoin. It's been mainly institutions, and I think I did also see, I can't remember what company it was, but they said they were going to go public about another nation state that started to stockpile Bitcoin. So we've had all this amazing news, but in the midst of all this, terrible trading platforms and people being liquidated and lots of lives being completely ruined. There's obviously been suicides as well, which is the harshest part of this trading sort of thing. And yeah, I think it would be interesting to find out how much Binance's pricing feeds really fed into this, whether it was just a cascade that we've seen in the past where one big whale comes on, people look at this huge whale, see a bit of bad news, and then it creates that cascade effect, and everyone just kind of sells as fast as physically possible. The order books are spread quite thin because there's so many exchanges now. There's like thousands of them, and then suddenly that creates this absolute crash with crazy panic going on.
Well, I do think, Dan, that we've reached, I think it might have been CZ even, who tweeted, at one point, Bitcoin will crash to 100K and you'll be crying. So we got to that point, the crash to 100K. And you're right about the altcoins as well. We need to mention that some of the altcoins, I don't even know these things, but like Atom, apparently worth $100. They say it's a real project, has a team, all this stuff. It went to less than $1. So it doesn't really matter how much leverage you're taking. If it drops down 90%, you're going to be wiped out. And again, for anyone that's just catching up in the audience, if you own the underlying asset, if you own the Bitcoin or the Ethereum or the stock, you're pretty much fine. The price went down, the price went up. It's about 5 to 10% off right now. Many of the altcoins, much worse off. But again, if you own the actual altcoin, it's possible you could be fine. It's possible that your altcoin could come back. But what happened here is that people are taking leverage. So they're essentially borrowing money to bet on the stock going up or the stock going down. If the stock goes up a lot, they win money. If it goes down a lot, they lose money. What happened for them is that the stock or Bitcoin or Ethereum or even Atom, whatever you're buying in this case, went down so much that it overshot where their contract was and it took away their contract. So now they don't own the underlying asset and that their bet has failed. So they lose all of their money. They're liquidated. So they don't have a Bitcoin. They don't have anything. So if Bitcoin goes back up the next day because the president canceled the tariffs like he did, these people still have nothing. So that's why, again, it's so amazing for these people. And I can't imagine their losses, the guy who lost 90 million and 60 million, but they're posting about it and they're warning you and they're saying, yeah, we played this crazy game with leverage and we got beat bad. Other people are more vengeful, more upset with Binance, upset with the potential Trump tariff seller issue. Jess C, what do you think about the crash and everything we're talking about here today?
It was wild. It was weird. I still can't totally comprehend how it could have been everything simultaneously. That's the thing that really I can't really wrap my head around. If it was, one, two, even 10 coins or something, but like literally the entire market, it's kind of incomprehensible. I'm not a leverage guy. Like I have a stomach of aluminum, not steel. So I'm just happy, like you said, Thomas. I have the underlying asset, so uh, I'm not as heartsick as I might have been. If some of these other people. It's a crazy game. It's a dangerous game, and it's a gambling game. And if you're gonna do leverage, then these kind of things happen. I don't know if anybody's going to get a lot of investigations kind of stuff. I mean, there is no SEC right now, Frank. And the whole government shut down, so who knows? Even when it opens up, if somebody like Coinbase tries to sue, maybe somebody like Binance, there might be some kind of investigation. But I think it's highly unlikely we're going to get any answers. It's going to be like Twitter, people doing their kind of internal investigations. Is it fishy? Of course it's fishy. How's a guy open up? A guy, I assume it's a guy opening up a short that large, minutes before a major announcement. But it could be a coincidence. I mean, there have been wild coincidences all over the world, and so I don't know if we'll ever know. I don't know. So I just kind of look at the world, and this is where we are now, and we'll just kind of see what happens next.
I think you have a good point that it was the entire market that all of these altcoins went down. A lot of people looked at this and they tried to understand it logically. And they said, okay, these are good projects. They have good teams. It's not like the team dumped. A lot of times you have an insider dumping 90% of the coin, something like that you can't come back from. But what happened here, I think if we look at it from a larger perspective, is that all of these alt markets, unfortunately, I'm going to get a lot of hate here, but they're weak. They're not technically weak. They're not 51% attack. There's not some kind of crack or some kind of code problem. It's just they might not have enough liquidity. They might not have enough people that are buying who are backing them during a point like this. And someone might look at this market, and again, they didn't do it, but they might say, well, if I cascade this one, cascade this one, cascade, I could get enough money in my snowball to cascade this next one. But like you're saying, Jess, they didn't do that. They didn't knock the altcoins markets over like in a row. They knocked them all down at the same time as this tariff announcement that nobody knew about except for maybe the president, maybe the people that work for him, and maybe his family. And we don't even know that. This is all alleged speculation. We don't know. But Jess, what do you think? How is it different this time? They could do one at a time rather than all at once.
Yeah, it's kind of incomprehensible. I'm assuming all the APIs of most of the exchanges are sort of locked into each other because, because all of them, it was like on all of them at the same time. It's kind of incomprehensible. As far as like Barron Trump, I've never heard Barron Trump speak one single word. I get the idea. I mean, like I might get some hate. I get the idea he might be slightly autistic. Maybe I don't think that's like crazy to say. So maybe he's an autistic genius. I get the impression maybe he's not. But so I don't know. But maybe he talks to a friend. I don't know. He goes in.
I remember going to a Twitter space once and waiting for some kind of coin that I think was his coin or something to be announced, and he ditched out of the announcement before it was even his turn to speak. He didn't even bother to show. So it is a surprise, but many are saying that he's dropped out of NYU. The word on Twitter is that he's allegedly made $80 million from cryptocurrency, which again, he's born on third base. He stole home. We're really impressed. Like the rest of us are born with $100. This guy's out there probably got 5 mil and he's like turned it into 80. I don't know.
But a kid like that too can certainly have friends or be acquainted, get introduced to people so he can keep his hands very clean and just provide the cash, sort of behind the scenes. So
it does seem like there's a potential pipeline. And again, we know nothing, no deep throats here, but that information that Trump's going to put out, this China tariff, is so valuable and might have been used in this case to make someone $200 million in an hour, which is a pretty good work. Dan, Eve, what do you think about all of the alt markets going at the same time? and the possibility of White House involvement? Obviously, we don't know anything.
Yeah, I think it's one thing about crypto is that it's kind of pseudo anonymous, right? Especially when you've got platforms like Hyperliquid where you don't need KYC and you can just put these massive shorts on, and it's difficult for people to kind of figure out where the funds are. But at the same time, if they're putting millions down, that's a lot of money to be moving on the blockchain. Someone's gonna see where that originates from in some way. There's going to be some exchange that it originates from. If it's OTC, it might be some from a very old wallet or something that makes it harder to trace. But there's it's a blockchain, it's a public ledger. There's always going to be a trace back to it. So on Hyperledger, there were 6,300 wallets wiped out alone. So that's you can just imagine how many other people were wiped out across Binance, because and any other place.
Well, and some of these people, like everyone's all down on leverage, and I get it, but I've seen some of these posts where the person says, "I took like 1.3 leverage," or "I took 3x leverage." I mean, leverage goes up to 50 or 100x. The event like this, like you're saying, it wiped all these people out, even the people that were allegedly safe with very small amounts of leverage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's also news from I think the Crown Prince tweeted about the fact that OTC desks in Dubai are completely fresh out of Bitcoin. So there's a lot of buying over there. So a lot of people are seeing this as a huge buying opportunity. It's historically been October, right? And October till November. We've seen some of the all-time highs before. There was one thing that I did find quite interesting was that a tweet, I think it was on like 4chan or something like that, but it did the analysis of the days from the low to the all-time high, and the all-time high peaked on October 6th, I think it was, which was a couple of days before the crash. So that's pretty, and that came in 2023, I think, that post. So again, there's speculation that this is kind of all some sort of orchestrated stunt by the deep state, or the deep dark web. There's a lot of ETF outflows, so there's like 536 million outflow yesterday. So maybe those guys are all fleeing to gold, since that's kind of. But then again, that's at its own all-time high. Peter Schiff's obviously dancing on Bitcoin's. Obviously, it's not a grave, obviously, but Bitcoin's loss, and he's saying that. Gold's gonna be 20K before Bitcoin gets to 200 or something like that. But yeah, it's wrecked a lot of lives, and we've seen this so many times before. The exchanges, there's a crash and the exchange is shut down and people can't get to their orders. There's the automatic liquidations. I think some of them from Binance where someone lost in the region of 40 million. And yeah, don't quote me on this. I think it's 40 million allegedly, all that. And they were given like a 25 cent compensation email. So there's some savage stuff going on right now. And the worst thing is, again, it's a lot of lives have been completely ruined. And we can argue that they should have been more risk averse. But then, platforms should be more mature in their systems that they can handle this sort of volume, especially, and I hate to say it because, Binance has been going a long time now. It's started in 2017. They're very mature as an exchange, and especially Coinbase, they've been going so long, 2012, 2013, whatever. So their system should be able to handle these trades. If anything, they should be geared up so that people don't get completely effed in the A when something like this happens. Like that, there should be more protections on the exchanges. You can argue that the decentralized, massive leverage trading, dexes like Hyperliquid, where they're really like casinos, where people, are much more prone to lose their money. But not on the bigger exchanges, not on the, and I think Jesse make a good point there about whether the SEC is going to look into this once it's back up and running, and any other institutions around the world, because yeah, there's obviously been some issues here. I don't want to pinpoint any one in particular, but there's lots of rumors flying around, so it's very difficult for us to say what's the truth. But I think we're going to get information on this big whale quite soon, because someone will be able to do some chain analysis and figure out where their big wedge came from in order to be able to put that down on Hyperliquid.
Yeah, and that money comes in and it's say whatever it was, 200 million. Is that coming in Tether? Like when it's on a DEX, I guess it's just in stable coins, some USDC or something.
Yeah,
And then they track it from there.
I think it was. I think it was a stable coin that came in and went into. I think it was Hyperliquid. And now, did you say that they've got a long now? They've switched it to a long.
It's
Kind of
really hard
reassuring.
to tell. I think there's so many people tweeting about it. They keep saying that they have a long or saying that they have a short because I think people are now trying to use that as a market symbol. So I don't know if anybody has a long or
The
a
new
short.
Pelosi tracker.
I'm not going to take any credit on it either. But the worst part of this, Dan, like you're saying, is that I'm watching it. If we are to assume that the Trump tariff on China is the actual incident that started the crash or the reason behind it, I thought he would chicken out. As hard as it is to hold your position when it's all going down, you're like, well, I kind of think, this can't last. China's a good trading partner. We really need them. By Sunday, he had chickened out and changed the tariff. And then again, as of today, Friday, I think that the tariff is back on. And now he's saying it's 100 times 100 or whatever. Everything keeps escalating. This administration, it's very difficult to say anything about. But yeah, if you could have just held on. But again, with the leverage, with the liquidity that they had, these people got liquidated, 90 million, 60 million, 40 million, all these people. It didn't matter that he chickened out on Sunday. The market mostly recovered, that he put it back on Friday, all these things. And like Dan was saying, the day counters, the people who are counting how many days in the bull market and how many days in the bear, they've said we went over our number of days for bull market. I don't believe that means anything. I believe that's the past. But these people counting the days, and as far as finding these people, I think it goes back to Goodfellas, where Robert De Niro was punishing many, many members of his crew who came back with the mink coat and the new Cadillac and whatever. I think these guys will screw up and spend this money. They made 200 million. How are they not going to spend it? And then, yeah, I think it'll be traced back to them. But go ahead, Dan, you had more on this?
No. I think it's a good point though. There's bound to be someone that if there is a kind of a lot of collusion going on, there's bound to be someone that slips up, right? And information gets out, some sort of private chat that's leaked. If there's some sort of cabal that's involved.
Well, the thing that's weird to me is like, just from the perspective of Bitcoin and decentralized finance, why would a tariff tweet? Why would that cause a bunch of people to all of a sudden sell their Bitcoin? That doesn't even that to me makes no rational sense. How that trick? I assume that had to be the trigger. I mean, clearly it's like they're right there. But who's sitting there like with Twitter open and Bitcoin and their exchange open, and then just is there like what I'm saying? Like I don't know. I don't know what makes. I don't know if there's bots that or something like it.
Yeah.
The whole thing just is so, it's just mind-boggling to me. It's so hard to wrap your head around. It's how these things happen.
I'm
Yeah,
not
you're right.
so much about the value of Bitcoin in the future, or people saying, oh, I've lost faith in Bitcoin. I think it's just the wider market. If we're tariffing China, there's going to be less trade with China. Things are going to be more expensive. People are going to buy less stuff. The markets are going to go down. If your Christmas projections were 100, you take your Christmas projections down to 70. And then a lot of this has to do, and I know I've seen it in the chat and I agree, with the linkage to the financial markets. We wanted all of their sweet financial money. Well, now we got it. And a lot of those guys have various shorts and longs and other positions on, say, Amazon or other stocks where they're going to be affected by these prices. So I think that unfortunately, when the administration seems to be tanking the entire world economy, everyone looks at that and says, well, I'm going to make less money. They're going to make less widgets. Even though Bitcoin's the coolest thing in the world, it's going to be worth less because the whole thing's just going to be dragged down.
That makes sense for regular financial markets. And the other, it's like when you got like so what you were saying, Thomas, like we have like the ETFs now, but it doesn't seem like that's where a sell-off came from, because if BlackRock was buying, then the sell-off was retail. And it had to have been on most, I guess, Binance.
There's been outflows from the ETFs, but it means that there wasn't so much a sell-off this time, like a retail sell. It was mainly these liquidity people, that we had all of this liquidity and these leveraged bets, and that when you run it up or when you run it down, all of the long people lose. And then when it goes back up after that, all of the short people lose. And there's something where they just zigzag it against the top and the bottom of the range, and they just keep wrecking these people at the top and the bottom. And that we had a lot of that. We had a lot of people saying, oh, Bitcoin's the greatest thing. I'm going to long it forever, blah, blah, blah. And that's where, again, once you get complacent and you're just following the trend, eventually the trend changes and they all get wrecked.
Yeah.
Forced liquidations. Ugly.
That's that liquidity market, that leverage market. Even everyone's always like, borrow things, don't spend your money. And I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, but what if it goes down to here? I mean, I'll lose the whole thing. It's so hard to wrap your head around. And you don't know if you're getting a good deal at Coinbase leverage or Strike leverage or wherever, Hyperliquid, maybe they get a better percentage. But everyone's just looking for that, I think, and they all got wrecked.
And even some of the bigger markets, right? They didn't drop as much as Bitcoin did. So I think you raised a good point there that this is tariffs, right? Tariffs have historically they're not linked to Bitcoin. So it was strange to see Bitcoin hit such a major downward trend, in very short term, obviously, hopefully, fingers crossed. And for stocks to be less impacted by it. I think Tesla only dropped like a couple of percent. You'd think that the traditional markets and the stocks and stuff would have actually tanked a lot more with the 100% tariffs, especially as they're a lot more kind of fickle to that sort of news. It's a lot more directly related. So to see Bitcoin, which is why I think that it's almost like what's the word, the prophecy, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So when that huge short went in against the market, a lot of people thought they combined it with the tariffs. They saw that the huge short, they saw the tariff news, suddenly, crapped their pants and started selling. We might have even seen a cascade effect from retail of stocks, right? Imagine if there's a lot of leverage. I can't imagine how big the markets are for leverage stocks, right? So imagine people clamoring to fill their positions or increase their positions on, say, a Tesla long or something like that in the normal markets. They're selling Bitcoin, they get the money over to the whatever trading platform is to plump their longs on whatever traditional stock or the index it is. So there may be people selling their Bitcoin to cover other positions that they had in the markets that they thought would actually dip a lot more than they actually did.
Well, and I think this crash is a good time as well to look at the morality of, if it's real, if they did front run the crash and they sold and they shorted billions of dollars out of this market to get their $200 million, they wrecked everyone else. They might have caused $400 billion in damage. They might have exacerbated, they might have spread it. They might have kicked it off, just like you're saying, Dan, all the algorithmic bots saying, oh, they're selling, I'm selling. They're selling, I'm selling. And it just trickles right down. Jess, what do you think about this idea of the morality of someone who's willing to crash the entire market to make $200 million for themselves?
Greed is good. I don't know what to say. It's like that's what the market is, man. That's what leverage is. It's like is it wrong? I would say yes. I would. It's horrible with what but I think whoever did it isn't. And I'm not saying it's not like they're a sociopath. I just think that it's just someone who's just thinks I'm gonna do this. It's like an adrenaline rush. It's like doing a mile line of cocaine or something. I think that's all it is for them. I don't know if they're the people that are doing this are like, they're like the Sam Bankman-Frieds. They're playing video games maybe and doing a bunch of drugs and just sitting back and having a big party and laughing their ass off. It's not right, but I mean, can't stop it. It's what's going to happen, So I don't know. It's not nice, but it's the market.
Well, the wildest conspiracy I've heard is that they watched one of these shows, the Bitcoin group shows, a few weeks ago when we said there's going to be another all-time high, and they were like, "Oh, I'm going to prove these a-holes wrong," and the whole thing was orchestrated just from that. So I'm not going to take the blame for predicting another higher all-time high, but yeah.
They did also crash the price during our show, so we didn't get a chance to respond. They probably wanted to catch us, mid-show in the chat and be like, "Oh, they're showing you now." But you're right, Jess. I mean, if you're inside the family, if this came from the White House, you're just kind of selling your family's power once again to get money. Seems like that's happened a lot. For the guy that's actually pushing the button on the short, that seems like a really risky position. You really have to believe and know that your source is good inside the White House, allegedly, all these things. So it's a big button push. Whoever puts that and nails it. It reminds me of another thing we saw recently. There was a guy, I forget how much they had, maybe like 10,000 Bitcoins, and they'd sat on them for these last 15 years or whatever. And they were like, okay, I'm going to move them. And they moved all 10,000 at once. No test transaction, no nothing. Just do it. So the same way, the person shorting this must have stacked up all the money they could borrow from all the people in all the world and then put it on this good piece of information and let it go. And even then, it might not be the information. It might just be the size of the short that kicked this off. Let's check in with the chat. Let's see what you guys are saying. They say, still here and early. They need another Mad Bitcoins European tour to save them. And they just might see that. Keep an eye out and definitely check out bitfest.net in the UK. Starship says the crash was quite exciting. All the exchanges closing, liquidity drying up, shitcoins absolutely wrecked. Thankfully, Bitcoin spike wasn't so bad. We're just a little lower than that a week later. Chikezi says Binance prices during the crash were crazy low, lower than other exchanges. And that could lead to court cases and other trouble for Binance. But once again, with this Binance thing, everybody's all rebelling against them, and there's all this boycott Binance and all this talk. This is the same group that pulled out of Malta when they even thought about taxing them, right? This is the group that pulled out of their previous country because they were going to be taxed. I'm just confused. All these traders are waking up to this essentially allegedly pirate type organization. Like Binance is a lawless group that goes country to country. Who's surprised that they're like allegedly maybe front running or pre-selling your trades? I mean, who'd be surprised they're selling your background information? Who'd be surprised that they're taking 1% liquidation fee and then helping you get liquidated? I'm not surprised by any of this. It's surprising to me that the other people are. So let's continue to deal with that. Let's check back to the chat. Let's see, they say, Chikezi says, what did people expect with institutional money coming into Bitcoin and crypto? They want your Bitcoin. And it does seem like we're seeing a lot of these up and down swings that would empty your pockets if you were riding leverage and maybe drive you crazy if you're holding the spot asset. They say margin trading is a mug's game. Any long with margin got wiped out in seconds, and the tariffs won't happen anyway. Trump always chickens out. They're asking about, they say gold is having a blow off top. There's shallow markets on the altcoin. Maybe arbitration bots is why it moved all at once. And again, they're talking about gold. Gold is at an all-time high. It's gone way up. They're saying that silver's up as well. People that bought silver in the 80s for $50 can now sell it for $50. It's amazing. They had one of those people in the retirement home celebrating gifts that went with that. And then Bitcoin is a huge share of the future economy. Then a trade war makes that worse. So that's why Bitcoin would go down if the economy was going down because of trade being more difficult because of tariffs. If too much leverage builds up, the market makers playing on the exchanges can make money by liquidating that leverage and taking advantage of the way it exaggerates price move. So I think that's a good thing to say, that it's really obvious when too much leverage builds up in the system, then someone can do this, or there's the initiative to do this because it's just sitting there. You know, you can even calculate it out, and they calculate it as well. Many things, you know, how much Michael Saylor would have to lose to go down on his, but they're like, oh, if it goes to here, it wipes out this many people. If it goes to here, it wipes out this many people. So they can actually calculate their potential profits really easily and then justify the crime. Chikezi thinks the tariffs were a fake narrative just to help the manipulation. And Starship seems to agree. The news story is just the trigger, the straw on the camel's back that exploded the spring-loaded leverage. So let's go to the panel. What do you think of the chat? Dan, they talked about gold. They talked about liquidity and leverage. What do you think?
Yes, isn't gold's at pretty much all-time high right now. It's what, did it peak at $4,300 or something like that? It's insane. There's there's obviously a lot of talk about, I think maybe it's the fact that Bitcoiners have been spreading the word, because I always hear about people talking about Bitcoin in public, right? You hear random conversations, but you never hear people talking about the gold markets. So maybe the Bitcoiners have poisoned everyone's minds, or a good poison, an orange pill poison, showing them that the fiat system's completely broken, and so when they're not so clued up about Bitcoin, they move to gold. And obviously, when something pumps, people seem to want to go for it, right? Everyone likes buying the all-time high. They don't like buying Bitcoin when it's $3,000 or $2,000 or $100 when you're telling them. They want to buy it when it's $100,000 and $120,000. So maybe the Bitcoin education system taught people how bad fear is, and that's why a lot of people are actually running to gold right now, because they're like, hey, I don't know how to hold this Bitcoin stuff. I don't know what a hardware wallet is, and I can gold I can hold in my hand or put it under my pillow. Yeah, and also the other thing I was going to mention was that Binance's stable coin depegged, didn't it? It went down to 65 cents, I think. So that caused a lot of issues. And that caused a bit of a cascade effect. And when you've got the biggest exchange in the world depeg, their stable coin depegging, that's going to have repercussions across the board.
Gold is looking very impressive. It looks like it was around 2000 January 2024, 2700 January 2025, and now around $4,200. So a major bump for gold. Jess, what do you think of the comments? What they say about the shallow markets and Bitcoin being a part of the future market? That's why it went down.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind those guys sort of suggesting, and it's all conspiracy stuff. But yeah, man, with that tweet, like, how serious is Trump when he's making these tweets? Or is he just like, wink, hey, Barron, if we're going there, let's just go there. That's what I mean, hey, we're going to do this today around 3 o'clock, get ready. It's because it's easy. It's happened. He's already done it a couple of times. So it's like, I don't know, but I could definitely get behind that. I don't know how, and that's what Dan was saying too. And that's kind of what I was getting at the beginning, because regular markets didn't take it too hard, because I'm going to say more mature investors, suppose, I guess we could call it, or more mature markets were much more stable and didn't take it as seriously. So I don't, it's crazy. Yeah. And the leverage is dangerous, and that's crazy too. So
It has gotten really strange, though. I think you're right that the experienced markets, the stock markets, have seen President Trump threaten tariffs so many times that they don't take it seriously, which is an amazing thing to say, that the President of the United States taking official action is not something that you worry about as a stock trader. Maybe the Bitcoin investors hadn't heard this, or maybe they have a personal belief in him and still believe the things that he says, even on Twitter or whatever, and they acted into it. It's interesting as well, I think, that just what it's become in a leak, that the leak was that the president was going to tweet. It wasn't like an official act or a bill, or that someone was going to vote for something or Congress was going to sign on. It was a tweet. So if that's all you need to do to make $200 million, I think people would front run all of his tweets. I don't know who in his office wouldn't want their share of a $200 million payday, if all you have to do is know that he's going to tweet about, say, Tylenol or whatever, which obviously did move the market, I'm sure, for the Tylenol company and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, the modern nursery, not nursery rhyme, but the kids rhyme is the man who cried tariff, right? Not the boy who cried wolf.
They're also saying that President Trump chose to do things outside of normal trading hours, and that the stock market couldn't go down because it was closed, which again is a disadvantage to Bitcoin that we keep seeing. We get the bad news outside of the market. Then when the market opens the next day, we get more bad news. We get run down again. I think we get hit at least twice for every one of these crashes. And that's why I do look forward to, I don't know what kind of tokenized nonsense they're going to use on what platform, but eventually they're going to have to open that stock market up to 24/7, 365 trading. And then at least we can all feel the same pain at the same time.
And certainly the order books are less dense. So once the cascade starts, like for that Atom one. I don't know what Atom is, but I'm like you said, I'm sure it's a legit project in its own way and has a team and all that. But like I don't how deep was the order book? For it to be able to go from 100 to $1. It's probably, it maybe isn't quite as hard as we want to think it is, or as it seems like it must be.
Well, it wasn't 100
buyers lined up.
It wasn't 100 to $1. It was not like it was a flash crash to like 1 cent. It was like $10 flash crash to a cent, but still it was like 99.9%, 99% crash, and not too much basically. Again, whether this is just the thin order books, and yeah, I think it's probably more the bots that are going crazy. I was always, a lot of the meetups I used to go to, there'd always be someone there who was trying to push like bot trading, even back in the day. I can't remember what the application was. It was like some sort of trading app that you would have. It was like open source, and you would buy these little algorithms from people, and they started doing it on Bitcoin. And then there would always be someone shilling this bot. And from speaking to other people with experience there, I never actually used it myself, but they would always backdate the models, right? So they would show you how the bot predicted this, but what would happen is that it would never predict it right. And when it was wrong, they would just go and correct like the algorithm to show that it would have predicted it right if it was the current one. But so there's lots of these bots. They're not programmed right, and they just go they go rogue, don't they? And they don't understand the market. They'll just they don't see the wider sort of news and things like that. They'll just go off of certain indicators, and then they all just crap the bed. And that's it. Boom, boom, boom. Cascade effect. And then lots of people lose. Lots more people lose money than they could have done if it was just humans sat there pressing buy or sell, right? Because it's not automated when you're doing that. You've got to make a decision, and if you've got a bot doing it for you and doing it just based on a few indicators, it's much more likely to go and cascade sell and then hit the other cascades as well.
That sort of happened to me. I did bot trading one point in time, probably about 5 years ago, using 3 commas, and I did have a Binance account at that time, and I linked the API, and I could use BNB as my trading fee, so that's sort of how I gauged what was. Long story short, it basically liquidated all of my BNB because it was the trading fees, because it kept just basically hitting the buttons so fast. I thought I was doing something clever, but I didn't make any money off of it, and I realized it was a kind of a crazy dumb thing to do anyway. So I just got rid of it.
And your account gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for donating. Gone.
Lucky for me, it was probably more like $25.
Nice.
Not 25 million.
Like Dan said, we have to watch out for these bots. If we had the bots connected to the nuclear weapons, the world would already be gone. There's a famous event where a Soviet man in his missile bunker saw what they believed was a nuclear strike from the United States. His response was supposed to be to launch his missiles. Instead, he waited, analyzed the situation, and said, well, if there was a strike, why would there be just one? That doesn't make sense. They would have struck many times. So he took the extra step to check in with some other stations, found out it was not a strike, did not launch his missiles, saved the world. Next time, I imagine the computer would just say, oh, strike, time to go. And that will be that. So presumably this is what happened to our beautiful Bitcoin markets. But last week, and perhaps this was the cause for the crash, people are speculating, we forgot to do the magic Bitcoin 8-ball that predicts the future. So people didn't know how to trade during this crisis. Now, as you've seen during the show, the price of Bitcoin has gone up about $1,000 from 106 to around 107. And now it's time for you, Dan Eve, to predict the future. I've seen two big predictions out there. One of them says, the bull market is over. Everything is over. Give up, right? The bears. Then the other side, and this is so seditious because everyone out there is like, don't tell me this. Don't tell me this. They say that because we binged to the top and they killed the shorts, and then we binged to the bottom and they killed the longs, we binged the top, because we've emptied all of this liquidity out of our market, disastrously emptying the pockets of our friends with the $90 million or whatever. But anyway, because they're out of the market, now we can have price discovery again. And price discovery is always good for Bitcoin because Bitcoin goes up because it's worth money, And that maybe without these longs and shorts, we're finally free to rise. So Dan, Eve, higher or lower next week?
Higher.
Jesse, higher or lower?
The forever optimist.
Everyone is bullish, but what about the ball? The only vote that really matters. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? The ball says it is certain. It is certain.
Yay!
The ball has spoken. The price will be higher next week. Let us know in the chat what you think, higher or lower. We'll check it out after. Make sure to give us a thumbs up and say hi in the chat. We're only really going to do the one big issue this week with the crash. There's some other smaller things. I like that Jack from Twitter was given Tether the knife. Tether, of course, made billions and billions of dollars off crypto. They donated $250K to the Bitcoin Development Fund. And Jack was like, what is that? He was like, and then somebody responded to Jack and they're like, how much you donate? And he's like, 21 million. And everyone's like, oh, shut my mouth. So it would be great if we could get Tether to donate some more money. And if Jack from Twitter making fun of them does it, that's great. We also checked in on the Nakamoto story with David Bailey. Someone saying that David Bailey is the most hated man in Bitcoin and that the Nakamoto is now below the value of their Bitcoin. Once again, speculators thinking it's a good price. I have no information on that, but we keep you up on the stories that we keep you up on. Dan, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Oh, my story of the week is really sad. It's my poor little dog. He had an accident a short while ago, one of them, and we took him in to the vet, and unfortunately he's lost an eye, so he's now a pirate dog. But he's getting along fine. He's got one of those cute little cones, and he's still trotting along. So yeah, make sure that you hug your dogs and give them all the love in the world, because sometimes they may have sad times, and yeah, let's make the most of it. He's still alive. That's the main thing. He's alive. He's just one-eyed. Arr. And my son was like, "Do they put in a fake eye?" I know, sadly not, because if they did, I would definitely have it. I'd be like, "Can you make it point the other direction just to confuse people?" But no, they don't. They won't put in a fake eye.
Or a patch. Patch would be cool, like a pirate dog. But yes, that's very sad, Dan. And so many times it happens. You get cut near the eye, and you get cut too close near the eye, and it goes the wrong way. And we've all had accidents. We've all been close to that. So I'm sorry about it, Dave. I hope he's doing okay.
He's good. Yeah, he's good. Doing better than the pigeons did.
Well, give him lots of treats for us. Give him lots of treats. And Jesse, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Let's see. I'll make a prediction. My prediction is that the 4-year cycle still exists, but it's going to be extended a little bit. So I'm going to predict that the bull market pushes till about January, and then some event will cause the next. It's kind of weird though. This is actually, this thing that happened last week is exactly the kind of thing that would start a year-long bear in a normal cycle. Yeah. But there's so much hype still about Bitcoin. I kind of feel like there's a little more air left in the tires. So that's my prediction.
Certainly not financial advice, but it does seem like there's a little left. It does seem like it's not over, and it's one of these crashes where everyone gives up and everyone's like, "Oh no, it's over," and then that causes it to go up just one more time. And
the dead dog eye bounce.
Yeah, it does seem like a much needed correction for Bitcoin, even though it gets confusing when it comes with this tariff story, when it comes with this Binance story. All of these things might not even be connected to say there is no conspiracy, and it just tacks onto each other. And sometimes that could destroy our bull run as well. Remember, SBF and FTX pretty much knocked out the last bull run with what they did and all of that. Maybe it's over this time. No one knows. But we're running out of time. It is a big weekend in the United States. I don't want to predict anything because I don't want bad things to happen. But I do think bad things are going to happen. I think that people are going to be incredibly peaceful at these protests, but that might not be what people want, because they might want to use this as a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act, so on and so forth. So everyone should be very careful this weekend and very safe. Take care of yourselves and others. Remember, milk is a great solution if you get pepper spray in your eyes. those kind of things. And yeah, just America's running right to the edge. Not very many of the guardrails or Congress is left. There's the Voting Rights Act seems to be planned to be gutted by the Supreme Court, which will lead to a gerrymander of the southern states, radical realignment and potential representation for a lot of people, a lack of representation for a lot of people. It's exciting out there. It's great. And the president's gonna have a meeting with Putin in Budapest. All the best times, all the best places. I'm sure it's gonna be just fine, but hang on to your hats for this weekend. And I don't know about the price of Bitcoin and everything else as the United States continues to sink and the president continues to jail and impeach and threaten his opponents and so forth. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I guess we should probably do celebrity news. Dan, what do you think? I mean, we had a sad week. We had Diane Keaton from all the Woody Allen movies and Ace Frehley. I'm not a big Kiss fan, but I hate to see these rockers go. They're bigger than life. They're, you know, Ace Frehley, Steven Tyler, Brian May. These guys are just giants of the Ozzy Osbourne, giants of their field. But once you hit the 70s, it's hard to keep going. Ace Frehley was 74. Diane Keaton was 79. Woody Allen is 89. So
wow. Yeah, I think what's sad is there's so many celebrities, right? You think about how many bands that you know now, like, you know, 20, 30, well, even 30 years ago, right? There was only so many bands. Now there's like hundreds and hundreds of bands and hundreds of like movie stars that you knew or grew up with, you know about, and just general famous people that it's going to reach a stage like probably really quite soon where almost every day there's going to be like someone very important to you at some point in your life that's gonna pass away. It's gonna get depressing as roller. But I like the Keith. Have you seen the Keith Richards memes? You know, obviously he's lifted from Rolling Stones. There's some amazing memes. I think my favorite one about this guy who obviously like smokes and drinks and has done all these crazy drugs and he's still absolutely rolling. But there was a meme and it was like, we need to start thinking about the world we're going to leave Keith Richards.
I love that one. I love when they had the Keith Richards show on Saturday Night Live, and he was like, "I always make my ice cubes out of booze. That's why when they melt, you got more booze."
Yes,
good stuff. But yeah, these Keith Richards again, still alive. Another one he outlives. Like another one, just unbelievable. But Jess, what did you think about the celebrity deaths and death of America and all that? What do you think?
Well, you know, I actually saw a celebrity death match of Elvis Presley versus Bob Ross. So maybe these people will be living forever through AI. I guess, you know, we're going to see new things from them. I'm kidding. You know, it's especially, you know, well, we're getting older and that's the way of the world. So it's going to keep happening. But I do wish, I do kind of miss like straight up music, like real music kind of stuff. And so, you know, that'll be a little bit different going forward. I don't know what's going to happen with AI and music and all that kind of stuff, but I'm glad we still have a lot of rockers still around.
I do like the remixes though. They're like some of them that you can, you know, get anyone, you like Arnold Schwarzenegger singing like Elvis songs and stuff like that. There was a really funny South Park one done on Sora the other day, and it was about pickleball, and it was one that was completely done. It was complete AI. That was a trailer for a South Park episode. But I think one of the coolest things that still just about hasn't made it yet is saying like, I want to watch Forrest Gump, but I want to see Keith Richards as Forrest Gump, for example. You know, just pick your characters, right? So you can watch any old school movie and be like, I want to cast this person in and change it up. There's going to be some really cool stuff in that. But infinite content. There's just too much content, and you've got to check everything now. Everything I always have to like grok it or look at the comments to see if someone's already noticed that it's AI, because it just seems like, you know, 50% of the content I see is AI related now.
It's getting really hard. It's getting really hard to tell with some of these videos. And mine would be actually John Wick, where I'm John Wick.
Yeah.
Well, you can do that on Sora right now, but you have to upload your identity. It's the creepiest thing ever. They're like, be a cameo in a video, which sounds like the funnest thing ever. Just give us your face and like part of your neck and whatever. That's a horrible idea. Why would I give you my? And they're like, oh, we'll only let people use. It just seems Sora is a whole box of worms. But you are right, Jess. I mean, people like Dan Keaton will live on forever. I think about Annie Hall. That will always be there. That's the magic of film. But also kind of the horrible reality of this environment we're born into. They don't really tell you that you'll watch all the people you love die, like that you don't know, like that are in Star Wars or whatever, like Carrie Fisher. Like, I don't know Carrie Fisher, but I've seen her in Star Wars 100 times. And that the entire culture is going to go, and that all of the heroes and all the rock heroes and political heroes and whoever you had is all going to go. But I do agree with Dan as well. It's just the pure number of celebrities. I used to say that, when poor Screech passes away, everyone will, have a big thing about Screech, and that he's a small character from Saved by the Bell. And then Screech goes and dies tragically young. And there is a big thing around Screech. And it is super sad that he's gone with the rest of the cast still alive. He was the youngest of the cast. And yeah, we can't control or know anything about these things. And still sometimes you're like, oh, other people are so evil and they last so long. And these people are so good, or they seem good. They bring us joy with their music and their art, and they die so young. So not much we can do. Shout out to Starship in the chat. We hope you're feeling better. He's got a virus. He's got to kick that and get those builders back in there so he can finish that TARDIS-filled bedroom, whatever he's got going on. He's got a Doctor Who theme that he's working on. But we're still hanging on, waiting for that third celebrity of the thing, although like Dan says, maybe it's going to be 5 or 10 pretty soon, and they'll just be dropping like flies. And I don't know, it's just getting old, But thanks to everybody for joining. Give us a thumbs up down below, push subscribe, say hi in the comments or in the chat. We always go back and try to read those, although all the comments lately have been about some new coin spamming us. So that's been fun. It's amazing how technological Google is, and they have the AI and all this stuff. But if you spam the name of a coin in a chat like 100 times, they don't even bother picking it up. Like, you need AI learning to see that we don't want some coin 100 times in the chat. I don't get it. Obviously, they don't care. So that's probably it. But thanks again to everybody for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.